Hi there and welcome to Game Logic Design. My name is Kent. Today I'm going to take you through what's coming in the next update for 4D Publish 1.2. So here's a new layout for 4D Publish, and here's a new area here that we've got to work with, which I'll go over soon, called Vector Graphics. So nice and exciting. So what we're going to do first is just set up a very simple scene just using some of the primitives and just to illustrate what it is we're going to be doing. So I'm just going to create a couple of cubes here, put them on the sides, and I'll create a sphere, put it at the back there, and I'm just going to create a cube and just move that to the front, and we'll see why in a second. So I have this here, and I'm also going to zoom into about there and create a camera. And then I'm going to zoom right in here, and I'm going to create another camera looking at the sphere there. But if we were really looking at this view, we wouldn't want that object in it. But we'll come to that in a second. And then I'm going to create a third camera just to view over here somewhere, about there. So now I've got 3 cameras set up, and that second camera that we called here, I created here, I don't want this tube to be in this camera. So what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to rename this to take camera, and I'm going to set this camera up using a take. So I'm going to come in here to the tube. I'm going to go to the take manager, add a new take, switch back. I'm going to add that tube to the take, and we should be on this new take. It's now active, and so with that active, I'm just going to hide this in the view there so that we can't see it. So now if I switch back to the main take, you see it's there, and this take it's not. So now I'm just going to go back to that first view there, and I'll actually just change again. Just back to perspective and just create a new view here. Okay, so now what we want is we want to export this amazing scene out to a PDF. So what we do here is we come over to our new view here, and we simply click New PDF. And that creates a PDF node in your view up here. And then we want to add a page to our PDF, so we just click New Page. And I'm just going to resize this to 512 by 512, just so it fits nicely in this presentation. So it's created a PDF under the page. And now we want our 3D view. But before that, I'll just quickly show you here. We've got grid spacing and snapping in this page. So I'm going to make that spacing a bit bigger. And I'm going to turn on the centering of the grid spacing so that it's centered within the image. And then I'm going to create my view. So I'm just going to click and drag and create my 3D view right there. And so when we export out the PDF, that will be where the 3D view is going to be. Now, the reason I created all those cameras is because I now actually want to control switching between those cameras from my page. So to do that, I'm going to create 3 buttons. So I'm going to create a first button just going along here. Then I'm going to create a couple of small buttons, one here and one there. So these buttons you see are underneath the view. And this first one, I'm going to rename it to Take Button, just so I know what's going on. And what we want this button to do is we want it to switch to that take that we created. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to come in, let's have a look at this button's options here, and I'm going to call that take button. I think I need a new keyboard there. And I'm going to create a new button, another button. I'm going to call that camera 1. And then the next button, I'm going to call it camera 2. And what I'm going to do now is on this take button, I want it to, when the user clicks this button, I want it to change that view to be the view of that take. So I come in here into the PDF button tag here, and I'm going to say switch to the new take. Now the new take automatically is assigned to use that camera, take camera. Actually, I may not have done that yet, so let's have a look. Switch to here. No, I haven't. So I'm going to make that use the take camera for the new take. So that take is set up to use the take camera that we set up. So that means now when the user presses this button here, it's going to change to that new take, and it's going to hide this object because that object is not part of the take. And then it's going to automatically switch to that take's camera. If we wanted to use a different camera with that same take, we could choose it here, but we're going to leave it unchanged so that it uses the camera for that take itself. And I also want to change the look of it. So when I go to this take, I'm going to switch to a wireframe view. Now we'll come to the next button, and I want it to switch to this camera 2 here. Just going to call this camera 1 so we can keep things consistent there. So this button here is actually needs to be changing to camera 1. So in here, I'm just going to change that camera to camera 1, and I'm also going to change the shading again to maybe illustration. And on the final button, which is this one here, camera 2. So I'm going to change that to be camera 2. And I'll also change the shading to be, we might as well go back to solid. Now, because we're using takes, we also need to make sure that these additional buttons use the main take. They don't have to. You could switch to the take, and then these could be used to switch cameras between the view with that same take's visibility of objects in the scene. But what I actually want is for it to always be the main take. So I'm going to switch that, and then on here I'm going to be main take as well. Okay, so that's all set up there. Now, you may be looking at this and seeing that the text is not quite centered. Well, you can just ignore that at the moment because that will be fixed here at a later date. But if we just export it, you'll see that it exports perfectly to PDF. So let's export that out. And I'm going to load up that scene. And I have to trust that scene here. And you see there's the scene that we just exported out. And we've got our big take button, our camera 1 and camera 2. And if I click this, it's going to change to wireframe, remove that tube, and zoom in to the view there. You can still interact with this if you want. And that will just take it back to that view. And camera 1 was the illustration mode, and it was zoomed out, and it was using the main take. And camera 2 is just a view out there, and everything's solid, and it's using the main take again. So now you can just switch between these views in here. Now, if you wanted to customize this look, again, you just come into Acrobat Pro DC, and you can change the look of everything you want in the scene. You change the font size, colors, everything you want in here. We're going to have some of that ability within here as well, but it's not going to be as good as you'd get, especially for the fonts, because for this first release, it's not going to focus on fonts. It's just going to make sure that you can actually enter text in here and get something out into the PDF. So just one thing to note there. Now I'm going to cut this video short now because it's like 8 minutes already. But I just wanted to show that in the next video, I'm going to be going over these animation options. So you can also animate objects, and you can also animate the camera. And you can trigger those animations using the buttons as well. So we'll go over that in another video at another time.